He failed 1,000 times. Real life story. Imagine this. You've been told for years that success is just around the corner, that it's waiting for you if you just try hard enough. But what if I told you that the real path to success is paved with failure, not just a few setbacks, but over 1,000 crushing defeats, each one seemingly worse than the last? This man, who went on to change the world, didn't have a story of a single breakthrough or lucky moment. His was a relentless cycle of failure. Each time he thought he'd hit rock bottom, the floor would fall away and he'd plummet deeper. The people around him, they thought he was done. They saw his struggles and gave up on him, but not him. He kept going, with each failure carving out a piece of him until something clicked. Now you may be wondering what kept him going, and what happened when he reached that point where most of us would have given up. Stay with me, because this story is about to turn in a way you'd never expect. And the scariest part, the real reason he succeeded might be something you've been overlooking in your own life. It starts on a cold winter's morning, in a small town where dreams are either crushed or forgotten. The man, no different from anyone else, wakes up with a heart full of ambition. His name was Thomas Edison, a name you've heard countless times, but his journey to success wasn't as clean and easy as the history books tell it. In fact, it was a brutal, never-ending cycle of failures that nearly consumed him. He wasn't born into wealth. He wasn't handed opportunities on a silver platter. In fact, he was an outsider, a boy who was constantly rejected by the world around him. School didn't make sense to him. The teachers labeled him as slow. But that didn't stop him. No. This was a boy who believed in ideas. He believed in the power of curiosity, in the possibility that something as simple as light could change the world. He was kicked out of school, called unteachable, a nuisance by his teachers. For many, that would have been the end. For Edison, it was just the beginning. In his early years, Edison had a string of failed inventions. Nothing he touched seemed to work, and failure after failure piled up. But it wasn't just one or two. It was hundreds, thousands of times where he'd try, tweak, rework his design only for it to fall apart again. Most men would have quit, their spirits broken, their confidence shattered. But not Edison. What kept him going? A question that's almost impossible to answer without getting lost in the immense depths of his mind. Was it his stubbornness, his refusal to accept defeat? Or was it something deeper? Something inside him, perhaps, telling him that greatness lies beyond the boundary of failure, that each setback is simply another lesson in the making? One night, after his most disastrous setback, Edison sat alone in his lab. It had been days without sleep, weeks of constant disappointment. His latest invention, a revolutionary new type of battery, had just failed again. The pieces lay scattered across the table in front of him, a tangled mess of wires, metal, and frustration. Edison stared at the wreckage, and for a split second, he felt the weight of the world bearing down on him. Every inch of his being screamed to give up, to walk away, throw in the towel, and accept that he was just another man who couldn't make it. But then something happened. A flicker of light in the darkness, like a quiet whisper in the back of his mind. He saw something. A vision. What if failure wasn't the enemy? What if it was just the process of discovery? That night, Edison stayed up until dawn, working tirelessly through the night, guided by that silent whisper. It wasn't the first time he'd failed, no, not by a long shot, but something had shifted. He began to see each failure differently. It wasn't an obstacle, it was a clue. A piece of a puzzle he hadn't yet completed. And so he continued, not because he was blind to the suffering or the endless defeats, but because he had learned something fundamental about failure, that it is not the opposite of success, but a part of it. It was the universe's way of showing him what didn't work so that he could discover what would. Fast forward to a crucial moment in history. The year is 1879, and Edison is on the verge of what would become his most monumental invention, the light bulb. The journey had been long and painful, full of setbacks, dead ends, and mockery from his peers. But Edison's mind had been irrevocably transformed. No longer did he view failure as a setback. It had become the stepping stone to his success. In the midst of his trials, Edison began to perfect his design for the light bulb, relentlessly testing and adjusting, one failure after another, again, and again. He famously remarked, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." The moment came when Edison finally found the right material, the right filament, the right combination. And with it, he gave the world the light bulb, a moment of triumph, but also the culmination of all his failures, all his endless trials. But here's the kicker. The true depth of his success was not in the invention itself, but in his ability to keep going when everyone else would have stopped. And that's the key, the lesson that separates the ones who make history from those who watch from the sidelines. Edison didn't just fail, he redefined what failure meant. He didn't see it as a barrier, but as a tool, a process, a path to the extraordinary. When Edison's light bulb illuminated the world for the first time, he didn't just light up a room, he lit up the future. His success wasn't about the breakthrough moment itself. It was the journey, the persistence, and the willingness to keep fighting when the world had counted him out. But let's be clear here. His story is not just about a man who made an invention. It's about a mindset. It's about how failure can be the very thing that propels us forward if we're willing to embrace it, learn from it, and keep going. As you sit there, reading or watching this, you might be facing your own failure, your own struggle, your own moment where everything feels impossible. You might think that you're at the end of the road, that the dream is slipping away, and you're just another person who didn't make it. But that's where the story of Edison hits hard, because failure is not the end. It's simply the point where most people stop, but it's the place where greatness is born. So the question is, what if your next failure is not a sign to quit, but the very thing you've been waiting for? What if the key to your success is not avoiding failure, but embracing it, learning from it, and continuing to push forward? You see, the greatest stories are not about the ones who succeeded effortlessly, but about the ones who fought through failure, who took each hit and used it to build something even stronger. Edison didn't just fail 1,000 times, he lived 1,000 lives within those failures, and that's what made him immortal. What will you do with your failures? The next time you hit rock bottom, remember, failure is not your enemy. It's your teacher, your mentor, and the gateway to everything you've ever dreamed of. Don't fear it, embrace it, push forward, because, like Edison, your breakthrough might just be around the corner. If you made it this far, drop the word light in the comments and let me know how you've turned your own failures into a stepping stone for success. Don't forget to watch our next story. It might just be the one that changes everything for you.